All right, everybody. Episode 151 of Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. It is Monday night. It is regular recording night. And it's also a special Monday night. Nick, happy birthday, brother.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the good wishes. 36 long years here on this planet Earth. Many filled with soccer, though, so those are the good ones.
Nice. Good stuff. Well, here we are, episode 151. We've got a few things to take care of here. First off, we want to thank everybody for joining us on our social media through all of our different sites, especially here on YouTube. We got an awesome comment last episode from Football Soccer. Love this podcast. Hands down, my fave MLS podcast. Keep up the good work, fellas. It's always great to see more MLS content. Those are the types of things that keep me going. And thank you, Football Soccer, whoever you may be, for that comment as well. We had some new subscribers jump on from our live stream reaction last Saturday night, a couple nights ago with New York City and Inter Miami. We had Fuji, Asidia Young, Brother BKL Contreras, Andrew Evision, Tine Suriaga, Galaxy Crazy, Roberto Pablo Tunke, and 17 Clipper. So thank you, everybody, for jumping on and subscribing here. And if you're watching and you haven't subscribed yet, get on with it. Join our 1,000 YouTube subscriber challenge. If we reach that 1,000 subscribers by MLS Cup Final, one subscriber will be drawn to win a $250 Visa gift card. It's that simple. All you have to do is click to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of our awesome soccer content, and you're in. So that's what I've got there. Nick, why don't you tell us about some of the other people that joined in Twitter and Facebook land?
Well, absolutely. And doing our live feed over there, Mike, absolutely thanks to Daniel Young for jumping in and giving us the NYCFC lowdown scoop there. And he is on as well tonight. Daniel, thank you for the birthday wishes, man. Appreciate it. And hey, good to see you with your NYCFC jersey on. For my birthday, I actually got an old school Fire jersey. And by old school, I mean like 2 seasons ago, where it was still the actual cool looking Fire logo, not any of the new ones. So that was definitely my birthday gift from my kids. Also, Amador Rojas, thanks for jumping back on, man. Shout out to Amador. Great to have you join the conversation, man. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on everything we talk about tonight. Also, thank you to one of our latest Twitter followers and friends, the Soccer Times. They've picked us up. They found us on Twitter. They featured us on one of their homepages, and go check them out. Texting with the founder and the owner of that, and he said that he's got a conglomeration of soccer posts and thoughts and articles and blogs and from everything around the world. So go check out thesoccertimes.com and look out for our podcast there, and look out for all sorts of great soccer content. So wanted to thank them especially, as well as a few other Twitter followers here as I pull up my list. TikTok, I-80 Sports, MLS Motorway, Champlain Football Podcast, Leo Benfeld, the Red Bulls, or the Red Bull 96, Good Pods, Scott Martin. Scott, thank you, over at the Soccer Times. Nicholas Luzada, More Than a Game Podcast, Katie Sylvester Hetty, and Hector Trujillo. Thank you all for following us on Twitter. Mike?
All right, man. We ready to rock and roll and get into some of these games here?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So MLS action roundup. We'll start out with the games back on Saturday night, starting out the earliest game, and that was Orlando City against the New York Red Bulls. Orlando gets the victory 3-1 over the Red Bulls. Orlando continues to roll. DC United hosted Atlanta United, and Atlanta finally has woken up to score 4 on DC United and win 4-0. Montreal and Chicago played to a 2-2 draw. Nashville and visited New England and ended up with a 0-0 draw. And then Toronto FC beats Philadelphia in comeback fashion once again, 2-1. Nick, talk to me about what you thought stood out in those games.
Sure. A couple little things from these games and one big thing. And I know you're going to talk TFC Philly because those are your boys, so I'll leave that one for you. Of course. But a couple little things here. Orlando City, with a 3-1 victory over the Red Bulls, now has them sitting third in the Eastern Conference. Yes, Orlando City SC, the purple and gold club with the lion on the front, been in the league a few years, never made the playoffs before. That Orlando City is now third in the Eastern Conference with 8 wins, 5 draws, 2 losses, 29 points, and a goal differential of plus 12. Mike, is it time that we start taking Orlando seriously? Like, it looks like they're going to make the playoffs for the first time in their team's MLS history. Do we need to start talking about them as like a team that could make a run, or am I getting ahead of myself here?
They might be able to do it, man. I think everybody's hesitant with them right now, and I am, but they keep winning. They keep scoring goals. They keep playing well. So overall, I mean, we got to start taking them seriously. They haven't dropped off yet. I don't think they're going to be able to keep this type of pace up, but I think they're definitely in that conversation with I'd say like the top 5 Eastern Conference teams right now that have pretty much separated themselves from the pack, even though not points wise, but as far as like talent and points all laid together. So yeah, I think we got to start looking out for them.
For sure. I mean, right now they're ahead of Philly, they're ahead of New York City, they're ahead of New England, and ahead of the Red Bulls, who they just beat. Like, those are teams who we thought, as we'll get into our preseason predictions revisited towards the second half of the show, those are teams we thought would be competing for the top of the Eastern Conference, and Orlando City has put them in their place in the table at this point. So that's kind of the first thing that stood out to me there, Mike. The other thing that just kind of a little thing here, Montreal kind of cools off the Chicago Fire. So that was something that kind of stood out to me. But really, the biggest headline out of this week's slate of games, that one there, comes in DC and Atlanta, and it has nothing to do with the scoreline, despite Atlanta finally finding their offense and going up 4-0. Do you know what I'm about to talk about? Did you see the ridiculousness surrounding any substitution?
I did not see it. I just heard it, and that's all I needed to do was just hear it and be like, "Oh God, really?"
Right. So here's the scenario. For those of you who didn't find it, go on MLSsoccer.com, find the article about it, watch the little 10-minute video, and it was 10 minutes of the referee trying to figure out what was going on. At halftime, DC brings in Russell Knaus as a substitute. They play just over 2 minutes worth of the game, and then the referee is notified that something's wrong with this sub here. Russell Knaus was not listed on the official team sheet submitted to the officials ahead of the game. So the result of it all was they just ended up pulling him out, not charging DC for the sub, and then I think Paredes came on and took the place of it. What really kind of made it laughable is you've got like referees on their phones, like looking up the game sheets, trying to make sure everything's legit. And I get it. Do it virtually right now, right? You're not handing in game cards. It's not old school baseball, right? You're submitting everything electronically, especially in COVID precaution times.
Right.
So they're on the sideline here with the fourth official going through trying to find him on the scorecard or on the game sheet. But then when they finally make the decision, which the referee did consult with Pro and did consult with the league office on what to do in this situation, and when it came out that, look, we're just going to pretend it never happened, just oops, we had an illegal substitution, no big deal. That's when Atlanta went nuts, Mike, and I think rightly so. Stephen Glass, their interim coach, is like, how can this be? You need to get red carded for an illegal substitution. You can't just ignore that it didn't happen. And Jeff Lorenowitz, Five Stripes captain, is saying, like, what are you doing here? Like, you're telling me you can't do anything for an illegal substitution? I think at one point the referee said Knaus has to go back to the locker room. And Lorenowitz says, I don't care if he's in a helicopter. You can't just ignore this. I mean, it was a great quote from Lorenowitz. I loved it. But what do you think should have happened here, Mike? And I know you're not, an expert on international football rules or MLS league policy, but I think on the one hand, you've got, practically speaking, a decent call, right? They just pretended it never happened. Nothing really changed the game at all on it. DC was already down 2 goals at this point. But then you've got the rules there for a reason. Where do you fall in this kind of debate on either side of it?
Well, I don't know what the exact rule is, but whatever the exact rule is what should have been followed, period. I'm assuming that nothing, just acting like nothing happened is not the rule. So that's Are you aware of what the actual rule is, Nick?
So here, let me give you what the league statement is, because it doesn't sound like the league knows how to interpret their own rules either. At halftime during the match between DC and Atlanta, DC United made a substitution. However, the player that entered the game was not listed on the official match roster. After 2 minutes and 16 seconds, the match officials recognized the error. The player was immediately removed from the field and replaced by a substitute who was listed on the official match roster. The change which DC made at halftime still counted against their allocation of substitutes and substitution opportunities. MLS will further investigate following the conclusion of the match. So that's the league's statement. So I haven't seen anything since then that the league has clarified, but it sounded like the league is like, well, this is a gray area. We really don't know, or we've never had this happen. So how do you address it? Now, I think the reason they ended up just pretending it didn't happen is because it was the official's fault. And it makes me think now that the fourth official is responsible for checking who is and who is not on the official game sheet. So if the league is saying, look, it's the fourth official's job, it's the referee's job to check all this, and they didn't, you can't penalize a team for that sort of thing. So maybe that's how it's going to shake out. That's my guess right now. But if I'm Atlanta, I'm pissed, man. DC just got away with one, and there's no repercussions going on whatsoever. And you know what? There should also be repercussions against Ben Olsen for unbecoming conduct on the sideline. Like, you hear the Atlanta bench screaming about this crazy, ridiculous scenario, and Ben Olsen's there like, oh, just go play the game. It's no big deal. Like, what do you want us to do? Forfeit? Well, yes, you used an illegal player. Like, you should forfeit the match. That's exactly what should happen, Ben Olsen. And he's even yelling at Lorenowitz, like, just get on with it. Oh, shut up. Like, for an MLS coach to yell at an opposing coach, technical area players, just shut up and play the game. Okay, maybe worse things have been said. I mean, just ask everyone in the USL right now. Worse things have been said. But there's got to be some accountability there, even if it is just, a warning to Ben Olsen in the DC bench. It's a ridiculous thing, Mike. And I want to hear what your extended thoughts are after reading the league statement. And then I got to ask you, is this Ben Olsen's time at DC? Is this the last straw? Because, man, it's just been ridiculous thing after ridiculous thing, underperformance after underperformance.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is a joke. I mean, that's something that can't happen. I mean, that regardless if it's the coach's fault, if it's the player's fault, if it's the fourth official's fault, whoever's fault it is, it's something that cannot happen. Especially, what's that thing? We're trying to become a really good league and like one of the well-respected leagues around the world, and you go and do some shit like this. Come on, that's not going to work. I'm sure that this has been brought up overseas. People are aware of it, I'm sure. Either way, there's got to be a rule for something like this, and that should be handled by that rule, whatever that rule is, by FIFA. If there is not a rule, there needs to be one, and then I guess it's the right call to just let it go as it never happened. Now, as far as Ben Olsen, how this dude still has a job, I have no idea. DC United has not been successful under his tenure. There's not been 1 year where you're like, oh, MLS Cup, favorites or MLS Cup contenders in DC United. It just hasn't been. So, I mean, they've made the playoffs a couple times. They've got Wayne Rooney and they fizzled out of the playoffs every year in the first round. But he's got to go. And I wouldn't even blame it on this. I'd blame it on the performances. The team is trash. They're playing like trash. When you get beat 4-0 by an Atlanta side who is, really struggling right now by Atlanta's own expectations, I guess. DC United on 11 points in 15 matches played. Do you know how many points they've gotten from Pipa Higuain by himself coming into a game in like the 70th, 80th minute and coming back and scoring 2 goals or getting a goal and an assist and getting a draw or a comeback victory? I mean, this team without Pipa Higuain is probably at like 6 points right now. And it's trash. They've got to go. But we've spent way too much time talking about 2 really bad teams and a really bad error. So out of these games, we touched a little bit on Orlando. Montreal and Chicago, it is what it is. Montreal isn't that good. Chicago's not that good. Fair result. New England, Nashville, I caught the end of that game, and Nashville just sat on it, man. They were wasting time like nobody's business in that game. And it's really frustrating watching that kind of stuff. Now to Toronto FC in Philadelphia. So we were doing the live for the New York City Miami game.
Yeah.
And I had on my laptop right down here, I had the Philly TFC game on in the first half, and it was kind of slowing down my feeds and everything, and it was real grainy, and I really couldn't see what was going on. So finally, I turned it off at halftime. My feeds got better, so I just, I'm like, let me just put it on the second half, see if the game I need stays on good. And I see Josie Altidore pull up with a hamstring injury. Right then and there, I just shut the laptop. I'm like, that's it. I'm so done with this guy. I'm so done with TFC, with that business. Forget it. And I'm like, maybe if I see the score, I see the score. But if I don't see the score, I'll go catch the end of it at the end of the game after our live stream reaction. And I did. And it was the exact same story as Columbus against TFC as it was this week. TFC woke up in the second half. Soon as Josie Altidore was off the field, Ayo Akinola turned into a beast. I don't know what, I don't know if he's afraid to show up Josie or something when Josie's on the field or what, but Ayo Akinola was fantastic. Pozuelo was fantastic. And they come back and get the 2-1 victory over Philly. This team just continues to surprise with Josie Altidore always out injured or sitting out for personal reasons, or Michael Bradley being out in the beginning of the season, then being out again now with another injury. When those guys come back, do you even give them a starting spot? If I'm Greg Vanney, I don't. I leave the lineup that's playing well on the field because that team right there is right there with Seattle for top in the league. Those are the two clear favorites in this league right now. I'm sorry to Columbus and Orlando and Philadelphia and possibly Portland, who are all in that same conversation. Right now, the way those teams are playing, and I've watched all of those teams play a full game, and from what I've seen, Toronto FC and Seattle are by far the better teams. So it'll be interesting to see how things go, once we start getting into playoff time. But overall, great performance by TFC. Now 3 wins in a row. A victory over New York City, which, again, I've said it in the other podcasts, on the lives, they didn't deserve to win that game, but they did. They found a way to get the 3 points, and they won. They were down to Columbus. They came back and won. The best team in soccer right now in MLS. Tied with Toronto now, but at the time they were number 1. Philadelphia, right there, tied with Toronto. Toronto comes back and beats them 2-1. Owned that second half. They're on a roll right now. So, anyways, let's move right through to the next slate of games. Houston and Sporting Kansas City.
Wait, you don't want me to try to criticize Toronto? You just want to end on a high note and keep moving forward? You don't want.
This is the mainstream media, bro. This is the mainstream media. I dictate what we're going to talk about here, okay?
Okay. So I won't. Okay, that's fine. I won't say that the last 15 minutes of the game.
My bias is allowed, okay?
Sure.
Anyways, go ahead, Nick. What do you want to say about TFC? Sure.
I mean, I won't tell you that Philly dominated the last 15 minutes of that game, and TFC probably looked vulnerable, and better teams may take advantage of that. But you know what? I will say for Vanney, I think he's got the confidence of ownership and management, and you know what? He's got time to play with his lineups a little bit here. There's, like you said, they're sitting second in the conference right now, only on, I think, goal differential with Columbus. They can mix things up. They can drop a couple points here and there and still be in the top 4 of the playoffs. Vanney knows what he's doing, and he can afford to do it. So I will give them that. Now, Mike, we did just get a comment here from John Colt. Thank you, John, for jumping on. Y'all think Iceman deserves a call for Eurocamp? Cibicho, what striker besides Sargent should be called up? I just subbed and don't know if you guys only talk about MLS. Well, John, thank you for the subscription, man. We appreciate the support. And go ahead and also make sure you follow us on Twitter at SOP Soccer for even more updates and tweets during games and other news. But we talk MLS, we talk USMNT. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw this USMNT question at the end of the show because we already have some time set aside for Gold Cup draw and USMNT roster. But we will address your question because we definitely have thoughts on which striker should be there, especially Mike, our Toronto FC super fan here, who used to think Josie Altidore was God's gift to soccer. Now we may have to change our mind on that one. So we're going to get to your question later on in the show. Thank you for jumping on with us. But all right, Mike, we can get off of that and put your bias aside and move on with some other games. So the next 5 games here, Houston dropping 2-1 to Sporting Kansas City. Miami, one of our live games here, losing 3-2 at home to New York City. Minnesota, the Loons of the North, pick up 3 points, defeating Cincinnati 2-0. Meanwhile, Dallas and Columbus play to a 2-2 draw. Seattle, again, like you said, Mike, they're the best team in the league right now, and they proved it once again, 3-1 over Vancouver. So, Mike, out of those 5 games, that middle part of the schedule there, what did you think? What stood out to you?
What stood out to me was the first one was the live that we did in New York City. They handled themselves well in that game. They were in control of that game. They jumped out to a lead, and then Miami, came storming back to tie it up, and then New York really quick after that took the lead again. So there's that one. New York City is in that conversation with those top 5 teams in the East. The other thing that really stood out to me was the FC Dallas Columbus game. I watched the second half of that one as well. Columbus, they should have gotten 3 points out of that match. They did have a goal disallowed against Dallas there. That was correctly ruled off, but overall it was a good game to watch. And I thought that Columbus was going to take the full 3 points in that one. So a little bit unlucky for them there. But a 2-2 result on the road, you can't complain with that. So those are really the big things that stood out. Again, Seattle, that team is just rolling. There's no stopping that team. You might get lucky here and there and beat them, but that team is by far right now. They're approaching LAFC territory of last season, where when Seattle's on the field, you just pick them to win because they're going to win. Get 99 times out of 100 right now. So that's, those are the real ones that stuck out to me. And again, that live stream reaction that we did, fantastic conversation with Daniel Young. And thanks, Daniel, again for jumping on with us. And we saw a huge uptick in our viewership when once you came on. So you're giving us some ideas to bring some fans into our live stream reactions going forward here. We won't be doing a live this weekend. I'll be up in South Haven, Michigan, at a campground, so no Wi-Fi for me, so no live. Unless, Nick, again, it's always there for you, man. If you want to do a live, go for it.
I may have to. Stay tuned on social media, and we'll let everybody know what's going on.
All right, sounds good. So, but we'll be back the week after that. We'll pick a game, and maybe we'll bring some fans on from those specific teams to kind of keep that banter going. But overall, then the next few games, we've got San Jose beating LA Galaxy 2-1. Then we had LAFC beat Real Salt Lake 3-1. So San Jose again. What San Jose team shows up on any given night? That's the question, right? Is it a team that just can't get it done, that looks like garbage out there on the field, or is it a team that can beat a Galaxy side? Which again, that's not saying much, but they're sometimes they're getting crushed, and then other times they're winning when they should be getting crushed. So it's what team is it that the Galaxy are? They've got to figure that out and figure it out quickly. LAFC, same deal, right? They're getting beat down some nights and doing well other nights. Obviously, this one at RSL, they played well, 3-1 victory. Nick, what thoughts do you have on those 2 games?
So I'm really not taking too much out of these last 2 games. We know how crazy the Western Conference has been. I mean, in some games you got teams scoring 5, 6, 7 goals, and then the next week coming back and laying an egg. So I'm not taking too much out of these 2 games. The Western Conference to me is when I get to say, well, by the end of the season, it'll all shake out in the standings at some point. So it's hard to really take these 2 games and kind of analyze them in the bigger picture of things. But I will say San Jose is kind of turning it around. And that they really were at the breaking point a couple games ago when they just got rocked. I think was that the Seattle game. They lost like 7-1. I think they got some consolation goal back late just to make it look like they weren't asleep the whole time. So from then on, it really came down to, can Matias Almeidas coach in the MLS? Does his system work in the MLS? Or are his players just terrible? And I think the word finally got down to the players that, no, guys, Matias Almeidas actually knows what he's doing and is a pretty smart soccer guy. So everyone thinks you all suck. So you need to pick it up and do something with it. And that is what San Jose has been doing. Now, you're right. It was kind of a low bar here in beating a struggling LA Galaxy, who, once again, the moment they get a huge name, they try to use this huge name, Chicharito, Zlatan, whoever it may be, and they just can't figure out how to do it with that person. Chicharito's headline in this one was the fact that he got into a scuffle with Chris Wondolowski. Not a good look for either of them, right? One, elder statesman of the MLS. Two, guy who's trying to rejuvenate his career and show that he wasn't a flash in the pan. He's looking like a flash in the pan. So, again, I don't want to take too much out of it, but at least those are some things to keep you entertained in watching this game. LAFC, yes, you should be beating Real Salt Lake, and you should be beating them by a score of 3-1. So that's where it stands for me there. Now, putting it into that bigger context of the Western Conference, LAFC sitting in the 5th spot there with 21 points. Meanwhile, the other 3 teams we just talked about, RSL's in 8th, San Jose's in 9th, Galaxy dead last in the West. So again, these games, even in the grand scheme of things, look like maybe they would have just jostled around some points, but that's about it. So I really don't want to give them too much time. And honestly, these 2 LA teams right now, I think I pretty much know what I'm going to get from LAFC and LA Galaxy at this point, and I'd rather go watch Seattle play, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see Diego Rossi and Brian Rodriguez getting on the score sheet for LAFC. And again, even in the playoffs, I mean, if it's the playoffs time, I'm not wanting to face LAFC, especially if they've got Carlos Vela back. It's still a dangerous team. They are not as good as they were last year. There's probably they might lose somebody by playoff time. I don't know how, with injuries or even with transfers, but it's still a strong squad. So I would be wary of playing them for sure. And then we got another comment here. Doug Reed, I'm late. You guys going to give picks for Tuesday and Wednesday or a later video? And Doug, thank you for bringing that up. I will be doing my picks and predictions video right after this video, probably about 20 or 30 minutes after we conclude here. Usually probably about around 9:30 Central Time. I will do my picks and predictions video. And those will have all the games from the 6th through the 11th. So that's there for picks. Thanks for joining, Doug, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our awesome action. And so that pretty much wraps up all of our scores and our recap of the game. So, Nick, why don't you take us into the halftime break here with the sponsors?
Absolutely. And yeah, it wasn't the MLS Super Roundup, 16 games or 20 some games.
No, that's next week, buddy. That's next week. Picks and predictions is going to be long. It's going to be like 20 minutes long, man. I can't. I've got 10 slides of games with 2 and 3 games each. I mean, it's going to be. I think we're another 25 games or so next week.
Oh my goodness. Well, then let's not keep anyone up past their bedtime any more than we have to. So moving right along, we do want to thank first and foremost all of our listeners, viewers, subscribers, everyone who's joined in on the conversation. Thank you, Doug, for the compliments. As he says, thanks, great show. But we also want to recognize, and we couldn't do this show without the support of our sponsors. First of all, Donovan Food Brokerage, food service and support company here in the Midwest, Chicagoland area, right in our backyard here. So thank you to John Donovan and everyone over at Donovan Food Brokerage, K through 12, vending services, storage, transportation. If you're in the food service industry, you need to look up DonovanFoodBrokerage.com. We also want to thank Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water, available at your local Walgreens. Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water, imported straight from Iceland, keeps you hydrated, especially in the era of the hydration break here. We appreciate them, offering what they have to the thirsty community, as well as their support of our show here. And finally, Skira Icelandic Pure Spring Water, our official hydration break sponsor here at Sons of a Pitch, the American Soccer Podcast, available at your 7-Eleven. So thank you to all of our sponsors, and once again, to all of our listeners, and cheers back to you, Doug. Thank you so much. Mike, anything more you want to add? Any other housekeeping, or are you ready to take a hilarious walk down memory lane here?
Before we get to that torture, I do want to touch on a couple moves that were made here that are pretty interesting and exciting. One is the Columbus Crew signed Christian Nemeth, that MLS veteran who's been with New England Revolution, really made a name for himself with Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah.
Not a huge signing, but definitely a good depth piece for the Crew behind Zardes, behind Pedro Santos. When they need a striker in the game, you've got that guy. So a good little signing there for them as well. Charlotte, the Independents, excuse me. The new expansion team, they signed Riley McGree from Adelaide and loaned him to Birmingham City in England. So couple little news and notes there. Also on a management,
Adelaide in Australia. That Adelaide,
I guess so. That's what I'm thinking. And then Seattle Sounders welcome back Todd and Tara Leiweke as part of ownership group. You'll know that the Leiwekes have been doing a lot of business there in Seattle, getting their NHL franchise up. Tim Leiweke is the guy who brought Beckham here, his brother. And then turned Toronto FC from the laughingstock of MLS for 10 years into a consistent MLS Cup contender and favorite every single year. So that name holds a lot of weight. So the Crew get even better, even from a management standpoint. So, that's scary from the rest of MLS's perspective there. But, yeah, why don't you take us through some of our picks and predictions for the beginning of this year about what we thought was going to happen when we figured we'd be in playoff time right about now.
Yes. So for our loyal listeners, you'll know that my pick streaks have not been very good, and Mike has been improving steadily over the years. But you're going to get a laugh out of some of the things that we had at the beginning of the season. Remember, pre-COVID? Pre-suspended play, all the ridiculousness. This was just going to be a regular crazy MLS season. And that is why we predicted from the, goodness gracious, it's hard for me to say, the East and Western Conference standings. We'll start with that. Mike had, at the top of his Eastern Conference, Atlanta, Toronto, New York City, Philadelphia, New England, Columbus, and DC. Meanwhile, I had a similar lineup, a couple things different. I had New York City, Atlanta, Philly, Toronto, New England, Columbus, and Chicago. I had Chicago getting back into the mix. I had Columbus getting back in, not playing anywhere near the level they're at now. I think our Eastern Conference actually looks all right, but for Orlando City as high as they did, Mike. I think our Eastern Conference we're pretty well on. But it's the Western Conference that kind of just threw it all off, because you had LA, Seattle, Kansas City 1, 2, 3, followed by the Galaxy, Timbers, Rapids, and Quakes. Meanwhile, I had Galaxy, LAFC, Sporting Kansas City, Seattle, Portland, Houston, Colorado. I had a lot of faith in Houston and Colorado. Right now, Colorado's in, Houston is out. I had a lot of faith in a rebuilt Galaxy team. It was like, you know what? We know what we did wrong with Zlatan. Now we can do it right with Chicharito and the rest, and they still haven't figured it out. So I was way off on the Western Conference, but I think we were halfway decent in the East there. Meanwhile, Supporter Shield, you had Atlanta, and I had New York City. Or maybe the Galaxy.
Yeah, or the Galaxy. I like how you picked two teams for the Supporter Shield, Nick. That was impressive. And yeah, it was just like every single award, which we'll get to in a minute here. You had your dark horse with your pick as well. It's always good to have a backup, right?
That's right. I'm a lawyer. I always have the second argument. It's like, Judge, and if you don't like that one, check this out here. We also picked some U.S. Open Cup champions. Obviously, that isn't happening, But if we pretend that the MLS's back tournament was that, we weren't too far off picking Orlando and Minnesota to win that. Both of those teams made the semis of MLS's back. Canadian Championship, Mike picked Vancouver. I picked Toronto. For once, you didn't pick TFC. I think that was just to make sure that they did get in. Usually you jinx your own team.
I do.
And then here's where it got a little interesting, and I'm feeling pretty good about our MLS Cup final picks. So you have LAFC beating New York City in the final, and I have Seattle beating New York City in the final. I still feel pretty good about that. Now, New York has suffered a couple injuries. They could get Maxi Morales back for the playoffs. Aberto is done for the season with an ACL tear. But I still think New York City, if the rest of their roster plays to their potential and if Delia pulls a magic coaching rabbit out of his hat, then they might actually make a good run, and Seattle is the favorite. So I feel pretty good about my MLS Cup.
Yeah, no, that's a good that you can still feel with that one. As far as LAFC, I don't know about. I'm a little nervous, even though I did just say good things about them. That scary team in the playoffs, and New York City could get there. So at least we still kind of have a shot with those ones. But yeah, the playoffs, it's pretty ugly there. Supporters Shield, forget it. We're way off, other than maybe New York City, as your dark horse there, Nick. But
dark horse picks. You sound cool when you make them. You sound cooler if you're right. There's no downside to making a dark horse pick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever. I'll let that go. But yeah, no, the Canadian Championship. I totally picked Vancouver just so I wouldn't jinx Toronto FC, and they end up technically winning the Canadian Championship with the MLS sides, like we were talking about. But they have the Canadian Championship final against Hamilton Forge FC. God knows when that'll be. They're saying possibly January. That's going to be interesting, playing a soccer game in Southern Ontario off the lake in January. But that's not my job. I don't schedule games. I'll leave that up to the professionals. So that's let's talk a little bit about our awards. Look, we got Doug Reed, loves TFC. Good stuff. Me too. I'm a diehard. I got my Jays hat on here. I love TFC as well. I got some ink on the arm as well. But anyways, you'll see how much I love TFC with my Golden Boot pick. Let's talk about some of our individual awards here. Golden Boot, I'll just get right into it, and I just want to slap myself in the face for this pick. My pick was Josie Altidore.
Yeah, next time I see you,
I was like, yeah.
Face for that pick.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I mean, I haven't seen you in it's been damn near a year now.
6 months?
So, yeah.
Quarantine are we in?
But no, I was like, oh, he's coming back. He's got a lot to prove. He's the only striker TFC's got right now. Didn't know anything about AO coming through. And, no.
Yep, injuries and personal reasons.
Trash. So you're go ahead with your Golden Boot pick there.
Yeah, sure. I had Carlos Vela winning the Golden Boot because the guy was so good last year. Even if he had a down year in comparison, he was still going to bag 15 to 17 goals. No one in the MLS last year was even close to 20 goals, and I think he was the one player that could repeat how good it was. Then COVID hit, then MLS's back hit, then he didn't play. He hasn't been playing, and that pick was all shot to crap, which is why I had a dark horse, Mike. Why I had a dark horse pick. Alan Pulido of Sporting Kansas City. They swoop in and steal him from the fire, and he leads them on to, a playoff run and a trophy or whatever. And unfortunately, Alan Pulido has not transformed himself into that goal-scoring machine that I predicted he would at the beginning of the season. And in fact, Sporting Kansas City has kind of struggled on offense in a lot of their games. Here, Alan Pulido, 10 appearances, 9 starts, 5 goals, 4 assists. So, overall, he's having a decent impact. He's getting on the score sheet once a game, which isn't bad, but Kansas City needs him to score, not assist, not double assist, not get the hockey assist or whatever. They need him scoring goals, about 1 a game, and so far he's not there.
No. Next up, MVP. This one, this is ugly again for both of us. So mine is probably more ugly than yours because my pick was Pity Martinez from Atlanta United. He does not even play in the league anymore. Sold over to Saudi Arabia. And yeah, I mean, he had a great first game. I mean, I remember that first game. He scored like 2 goals and had an assist or something. And I'm like, yes, he's doing it finally. This is it. He's gonna make it. I was right. Oh, never mind. Yeah, not good. But if I had a dark horse, I would have picked Alejandro Pozuelo because I did talk about him in our season preview video way back when, saying that I can't wait to see what a full year, like a full off-season arrest for Alejandro Pozuelo since he came in from Belgium, and played like 20-something months straight and still did what he did, best 11 caliber. And he's in the conversation for MLS MVP. So if you want to talk about dark horses there you go. Nick, you picked Maxi Morales from New York City FC.
I did.
Injuries, man. I mean, he had it okay. He was playing okay. Not not MVP caliber, but he was playing okay. And then, of course, tore his ACL or MCL or PCL or ABC or whatever the hell you call it. And he's out for the season. So no such luck on our MVP picks there. Newcomer of the year, I said Alan Pulido. And the guy you said possibly Golden Boot dark horse, and that didn't happen. I mean, it's not happening. And you never know if he hits it off, starts scoring a bunch of goals. Maybe he gets in that conversation, but I doubt it. And your pick is I'm gonna let you go ahead. Even your dark horse is horrible, so go ahead and tell everybody your newcomer of the year.
To be newcomer of the year because I figured the Galaxy would put it together. They did not. My dark horse was Edson Flores of DC, and he got hurt too, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
He got hurt, and even when he was playing, he has not jumped in yet with DC at all.
Right. So if any viewer, listener out there wants to jinx your opposing team, sponsor the podcast, sponsor the YouTube broadcast. We'll pick whoever you want us to, and then they'll go out and have a terrible season. So,
there you go.
Yeah, we're willing to do that for you, the fans.
We are.
Anyway,
absolutely.
Who did we have up next, Mike? Defender?
Defender of the year.
Goalkeeper of the year. Whoa.
Yeah. So defender of the year, I picked Romain Metnair from Minnesota United. Hasn't had a horrible season. I don't even know if I had to pick a defender of the year right now, who I would even throw into that conversation. Maybe a Mark McKenzie with Philadelphia. I don't know. There's nobody that's really standing out to me in MLS. It's like that's a real lockdown defender. You got any thoughts there?
I'm just looking at goals allowed here. Columbus has only allowed 10 goals, so if you could nominate their whole back line, maybe. And then Seattle has only allowed 13 goals. And, they went out and signed Chad Smith again, and then they went out and signed not Chad Smith, Brad Smith, and they went out and got Roman Torres. So, they're getting the band back together, right? I've seen the Blues Brothers tweets out there and memes for the Sounders. They're bringing those defenders back to add depth and make a run for the playoffs. So it'd probably have to come from someone on one of those two teams because I just don't know of any kind of big center back who's just locking down the league. Right. But I'd pick Miles Robinson or possibly Walker Zimmerman. And, hey, maybe if Nashville makes the playoffs, they've got
possibility
15 goals. Like Zimmerman probably could get some votes in that category. Meanwhile, continuing the defensive trend, I picked Matt Turner of New England to be goalkeeper of the year. Sean Johnson, New York City, my dark horse there. Matt Turner definitely is having a good season with New England, playing himself into USMNT conversation, at least from the point of the fans, whether or not they're just kind of tired of talking about Zach Steffen or the fact that Matt Turner actually is playing that well. Who is your goalkeeper of the year, Mike?
Mine was Andre Blake with Philly. He's only given up 13 goals this season, so he's having a decent year as well, but he's got a strong back line in front of him. So I think Matt Turner, if it was right now, he would probably be in the lead for that goalkeeper of the year. So well done, Nick.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And you know what? Speaking of defenders, maybe I was thinking of Brendan Aronson was playing, out on the wing, but he's playing more of a midfield role. Maybe Mark McKenzie of the Union gets some talk. He's getting interest from Celtic in Scotland. He's having a very good year for a good Union team. So maybe he kind of gets the Eastern Conference Defender of the Year, and we'll have to talk about Seattle or Portland playing well out in the Western Conference. Meanwhile, the last category, Coach of the Year, and I'll let you talk about this one, Mike.
Yeah, so my pick in this one is Robin Fraser from Colorado. The way he ended last season when he first came on was spectacular, and not so much this year. They're doing okay. They're technically in the playoffs right now if the season was to end today, being in that 7 spot, which now 8 teams will make it instead of 7. But they're doing okay, but I think they're not playing up to their potential at all. So I think that would eliminate him from that talk. Nick, you've got Tab Ramos as Coach of the Year for Houston. Houston Dynamo sitting on 16 points out of 15 matches.
I mean, his wins were big wins, but unfortunately, there's only a couple of them. I really thought he would help turn Houston around. They had a lot of offensive firepower. I thought they would finish middle of the playoff grouping there, not just middle of the table, middle of that playoff grouping, maybe getting 5-6 seed if that offense could get going, right? I had them in the 6th seed in the West. They did have a lot of offense. They've moved some pieces around, and unfortunately, they just couldn't find the goals and find the wins. But I figured if he could do that for Houston, he would definitely be Coach of the Year.
Yeah, so there you have our awards and all that. Now let's talk a little bit USMNT and get to John Colt's question around. Let me pull it up here again so our viewers can see it again here. Asking if the Iceman deserves a call up for Eurocamp. Sibachu. I don't even know how to pronounce that, Nick.
Yep.
What striker? Yeah, what striker besides Sargent should be called up? So, what are your thoughts here on Sibachu? Am I even saying it correctly?
I don't know because I actually couldn't find a good pronunciation while trying to look it up. But yes, we can. Theosan Sibachu, I think we can do that. He's a French player, born in DC though, so eligible for the U.S. He did have a France under 20. He has 2 French under 21 call-ups. So I don't know if he is going to even be on the U.S.'s radar. We know how the U.S. kind of treats dual eligible players, for better or worse, right? But here's the thing. You've got Josh Sargent as kind of your striker in waiting. You currently have Josie Altidore if he's fit. There's talk about bringing Ayo Akinola up. You can bring in Jordan Morris and maybe have him play up front, though he's more comfortable on the wing.
Yeah.
Boy, would it be fun to see Pulisic on the left and Morris on the right. Zardis in the center, kind of flicking and feeding and distributing, even though he's kind of getting up there in age as well. So that's kind of been the pool, the top of the pool right now. But the Iceman, and full disclosure here, part of the reason we addressed this question now is because I had to go look up who he meant by the Iceman. How could I forget Aron Johansson, who is Icelandic, but also born in good old Mobile, Alabama, so eligible for the United States. Had some call-ups for Iceland's U21, 10 call-ups there, but has been called up by the U.S. men's senior team 19 times, where he's bagged 4 goals. Now, I think it's a little. I think we can move past Aron Johansson. He is age 29. His peak club has been Werder Bremen, and he's currently playing with Hammarby back over in Sweden, I believe.
Yeah.
So I don't
Denmark,
excuse me. So I don't think that he is going to be the answer at striker there. Hammarby in Sweden. Excuse me.
Sweden. Okay.
I don't think he's going to be the answer there. And we're looking at Josh Sargent struggle at Werder Bremen to get quality opportunities. So I don't think Johansson's time at Werder Bremen was any good for him either. So I think we can move past Aron Johansson. Maybe if they solicit Theo, I'll call him Theosan Sibachu. If they can solicit him and recruit him to come over to the United States, I mean, we all know how good strikers can in France can play. They've won a couple World Cups, so maybe he can bring a little bit of that over to the United States. If not, but you know what? I really think knowing Berhalter in the system that he wants, he's probably going to have Zardis on the bench when it actually comes World Cup time to count. He's probably going to have Zardis on the bench just because if Zardes only needs to do it for 20, 30 minutes a game, I think he can execute the game plan. He's shown how well he's playing in the MLS right now. And then you definitely have Pulisic and Morris on the wings as kind of your guys up front. Absolutely, Josh Sargent can play into a starting spot on the USMNT team, but he's got to do it more overseas. It's hard to say how much he's developed because we've had 6 months of no international soccer and barely any club soccer. So that's kind of my thoughts on Johansson, Sargent, and those guys on the USMNT level. Mike, do you have any other thoughts, or should we get into the Gold Cup?
No, I want to talk about it real quick. Call the guy up. Simple as that. The more guys you have in competition for that striker position, the better. It's a weak spot for USMNT. Get him in here and show him that he's wanted. He obviously has some talent. I mean, he's got he's a younger guy. He's not wonder kid status anymore at 24. But he's got a $3.85 million market value. Was his highest was $7.7 million on Transfer Market, which is pretty decent. And here as John calls up, he said he wants a call up. And dude, if the guy's looking for a call up, get him the call up, get him in the mix, and lock him down, cap tie him to USMNT. We need all the help we can get up there because, as you say, Jossie Zardes, Josie Altidore, Josh Sargent. Well, Sargent hasn't really proved himself on the USMNT stage yet. He's doing well in the Bundesliga, and Werder Bremen kept him up. He's still young. But, Josie Altidore with his health and fitness, forget about it. We all know about that. I mean, I've been on the train saying, he's going to be okay. He's going to put it together for the last 5 years. But he can't seem to do it. So, I say bring him in and the same Ayo Akinola. Nigeria scouting him hard. Canada scouting him hard. I think he's more apt to go to the United States than Canada because Canada has a lot. I mean, they got Jonathan David. They've got a lot of strong strikers up there in Canada, more so than the U.S. So Ayo Akinola is probably going to get into the fold here. I would say bring in Jordan Sibiachu and see what he's got. So
and one more domestic-based player, Jeremy Ebobisse. We can't forget how much he's stepped up his game over the last 2 seasons.
He has stepped up his game for sure.
He's in the mix. He's probably going to get called up, and there's going to be one of your striker spots.
Yeah, but when you're talking about a game, on a level of you're playing the Netherlands or you're playing a Spain or you're playing in Italy, does Jeremy Ebobisse strike fear in the hearts of opposing defenders? No.
Does any American not name Pulisic, McKennie, or Adams? Like, let's be honest.
Well, you got a point, but that's the kind of thing I think Ebobisse is just not really. I don't think he's there with the USMNT. He's done better in MLS, but he's still not even. I wouldn't consider him one of the better strikers in MLS. I hate to say it.
Well, if he keeps the beard, he could be an intimidating figure.
Yeah, the patchy beard.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Anyways, let's move on. Thanks again, John, for the question and the subscription. Really appreciate it. And let's talk a little bit about the Gold Cup, and then I do want to touch on Daniel Young's question about the New York City FC stadium because I knew nothing about that. So, awesome. Daniel, anything else you want to throw in the comments there in the chat to let me know about it? Because I'm looking up here on Google and not finding much, but I didn't know anything about that. So let's talk some Gold Cup with this draw. And we've got Group A, Mexico, El Salvador, Curacao, and winner of the prelims, number 9, Trinidad Tobago versus Montserrat, Cuba versus French Guinea. That group, easily Mexico, no question about it. El Salvador, Curacao battle it out for second place out of that group, probably.
Yep. Yeah, I think that the way the draw happened is the way it's going to shake out. If Curacao can get 3 over El Salvador, they could slide up to the second spot. A little bit of trivia here for everybody. Curaçao's national team is actually on the rise because they were colonized by the Dutch. So there are a lot of players who have dual citizenship, dual FIFA membership, however you want to call it, dual national abilities between Curaçao and the Netherlands. The Netherlands, one of the top soccer nations in the world. So if these guys are like, well, maybe I could ride the bench in the Netherlands or I could start for Curaçao, there's a few guys who are starting for Curacao and really bringing their squad up. So something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. So Group B, we've got the one that we're all most excited about here: United States, Canada, Martinique, and the winner of the prelim 7, Haiti versus St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Bermuda, Barbados. That one is going to be there's no doubt in my mind that'll be Haiti in that spot. So I think it really comes down to the USA-Canada game. If
sounds right to me,
whoever wins, that's going to win the group, and whoever loses that is going to battle it out with Haiti to get that second spot.
I'm with you there, Mike. I think it's US-Canada. The one thing I want to point about that grouping as we look at the overall bracket, the U.S. needs to win that game. Like, they need to win that group. They can't just coast and say, well, if we come into Canada, come in second to Canada, a couple draws, no big deal. No, they need to win that group, because if the rest of the tournament plays out as expected and the United States comes in second in Group B, they'll then have to play in the knockout rounds Costa Rica, Mexico, and maybe Panama in the finals. Otherwise, if they win Group B, it's likely they'll play Jamaica, Panama, and then maybe Mexico in the finals. So you want to win your group. Definitely want to win that group.
Yeah, no doubt there. Group C, Costa Rica, Jamaica, Suriname, and the winner of the prelims between Guatemala, Guyana, Guadalupe, and the Bahamas. So that one, Guatemala, but that's wide open for who could win that fourth spot, because Guatemala has fallen off over the past 10, 15 years or so. So Costa Rica and Jamaica, to me, there's no question. Those will be the two teams out of that group.
I'm with it. You're right. Unless Guatemala pulls some crazy upset, I do think they'll come out of the prelims. Unless they pull some crazy upset over Jamaica, it's Costa Rica, Jamaica 1-2 for me.
Okay. Then we've got Group D, Honduras, Panama, Grenada, and Qatar, the invitee to the tournament. Which, why the hell are you inviting
World
Qatar?
Cup, man?
And you say, I know they host the World Cup. That's fantastic.
No hard feelings for bribing.
They're hosting the World Cup,
and they're going to
because they got that oil money that they say, hey FIFA, hey give me that World Cup here. Here's some money.
We'll get your stadiums built. Don't worry about human rights violations. They'll be built in time. Which, God, I really wish, like, the U.S. and Canada, one of those teams was in that group just so they could crush Qatar on the soccer field. But anyway, it is what it is. It probably worked out best that they're playing Honduras and Panama instead.
Yeah. So overall with the bracket, I mean, again, it doesn't change in my mind as far as who the favorites are. It's USA and Mexico are the favorites in this tournament. It'll be a shock if it's not U.S. and Mexico in the final. Other than maybe Costa Rica could come in and play a little bit of a spoiler. I don't think Jamaica. I don't think Canada. I don't think these other teams are quite there yet. I think they're close, but they're not quite there yet. So I see a U.S.-Mexico final, and either way, the Gold Cup's always exciting. So, and being American soccer fans, we love it. But yeah, any thoughts else on the Gold Cup before we touch on this New York City question real quick?
Yeah, I just pulled up Qatar's FIFA ranking. They are at 55, which is between Jamaica and Honduras, if you want to put it in CONCACAF standings. So Qatar is ranked 55th in the FIFA World Rankings. Jamaica's at 48. Honduras is at 62. U.S. is 23. So, we scoff at Qatar, and we scoff at kind of, whatever soccer organization they have and the fact that they've got the World Cup. But they do have the World Cup. They don't want to be the second nation to ever not make it into the knockout rounds. Apologies to South Africa. So they've probably put a lot into their program, and it's definitely showing in the rankings. Then again, I don't know who they've played. Maybe they're only staying within the Asian Confederation, which is traditionally not one of the stronger ones in FIFA. So just wanted to throw that out there. Let's give Qatar at least the other side of the coin here a little credit.
So Daniel, with a question, what is Qatar or Qatar's tactics? Daniel, dude,
I don't know.
We have no idea. We know a lot about soccer. We know a lot about world football. We spent way too much time on soccer. Ask my wife; she'll tell you.
You don't have to ask,
dude. We don't know that kind of. We don't have that kind of. We don't have that kind of knowledge.
Here's World Cup, Gold Cup, then you'll know.
Yeah. And so Daniel Young says, park the bus. Hey, that could be. Who knows? That maybe they just that's how they roll. I don't know. But I want to touch on a little bit here on New York City with their new stadium. Looks like they do have some type of public records are showing that they're looking at building a stadium very near to Yankee Stadium. And it's kind of reducing some traffic flow and all that kind of stuff that seems to be the headaches at hand for this bid. But overall, at least they have something getting into the works here with with a stadium. They need that, period. So apparently it's gonna like take out some type of ramp, the major Deegan East 153rd Street ramp.
Sure.
But
right.
We'll kind of show the viewers here. I'll share my screen just for the end of this. But it's interesting where they've got this and how they would change up the ramp and all that kind of stuff. But overall, it looks like, I don't know how to make that any bigger. There we go. So right now, you've got kind of here's a bigger map here for everyone. At least this is a step in the right direction, right? For New York City to get a stadium in the major city area, right? So that's a good step as far as for me. I'm all for it. New York City needs their own stadium. They've got to get out of that baseball field, and albeit a historic one, they've got to get out of there. It really is hurting their team because, as we've seen in the playoffs, they can't handle it in the playoffs, and when they've got to go on the road, that hurts them. So overall, you can get by with that in the regular season in MLS, and that's been proven because occasionally before this pandemic break, it was like a 80% win percentage for home teams. So you could get away with that because normally you're going to lose on the road anyway. But now it's changing. The playoffs, it changes, and hopefully, for New York City State, this will go through and be good for them. So thank you for that tidbit of information there, Daniel. I didn't know about it until you said something, so I appreciate that. And with that, man, I've got nothing else. It's been a great show. We've had a lot of viewers tonight. We had 7, 8, 9 watching at one time. I think we even got 10 at a time watching, which is very rare for our podcast episodes. So thanks everybody for watching. Thank you for everybody who subscribed tonight. I think we've had 2 or 3 so far on this episode. So thank you for that. And Nick, any final thoughts? Take us home, man.
Hey, thank you to the viewers, the listeners, the subscribers, the sponsors, especially for helping us, be able to use this great hosting platform. Stay tuned. Mike, you got your picks and predictions coming up in about a half hour or so. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Here's hoping 36 is my best year yet. And that's everything from all of us here at the Sons of a Pitch, an American Soccer podcast. Have a great night and an excellent week.